Let's just say life threw us a curveball we thought we could catch. I start pouring myself another cup of coffee. It was a Tuesday morning, just like any other, except it wasn't. That morning, sitting across from Sarah at our kitchen table, we decided to open our marriage. It seemed like a wild idea, exciting even. Little did I know, Sarah was always the more outgoing one. It didn't surprise me when she found a guy, Mark, within a week. They met at a yoga class or something. I tried not to pay too much attention. Me? I downloaded a couple of those dating apps, swiped right, swiped left, felt like a game where I was always losing. Our house, once filled with the sound of our laughter, slowly started echoing with silence. Sarah was always texting, giggling at her phone. I couldn't remember the last time she laughed at my jokes that way. I sat on the couch one evening, TV remote in hand, just flipping through channels. Nothing caught my interest, not even the game. I finally got a match, Lisa. We agreed to meet at a local bar. I showed up in my best shirt. The blue one Sarah said brought out my eyes. I waited, checked my watch every 5 minutes. Lisa never showed. I ordered a beer, then another. The bartender gave me that tough night, buddy. Look, I just nodded and asked for the bill. One Saturday, Sarah went out with Mark. I stayed in, ordered pizza. The living room felt too big, too empty. I ended up eating straight from the box, crumbs falling onto my lap. I flicked through Sarah's favorite shows on Netflix, but they didn't make sense without her commentary. Days turned into weeks. Sarah was always buzzing around, readying for another date, another night out. I'd catch glimpses of her, the way she smiled at her phone, the way she hummed while getting dressed. I miss that Sarah, the one who used to hum while making us coffee. I tried again with the dating apps. Met a woman, Karen, we had coffee. She talked about her ex a lot. I just nodded, sipped my latte, and wondered if Sarah was having a better time with Mark. The date ended with a nice to meet you and nothing more. One night I came home to find Sarah already in bed, her phone in her hand. The room was dark except for the glow of her screen. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. The silence was deafening. I wanted to say something, anything, but words felt heavy and useless. I started spending more time at the office. My desk became a refuge of sorts, papers, reports, emails. They didn't ask questions or make me feel inadequate. I'd come home late, Sarah would already be asleep, or maybe she was pretending to be. I never knew. The kitchen, once the heart of our home, now felt like a stage. We'd pass each other, sometimes exchanging a few words about groceries or bills. Our conversations had shrunk, compressed into necessary exchanges, void of laughter or warmth. I saw her one evening getting ready for a date. She looked beautiful. I wanted to tell her that, to hold her, to ask her to stay, but I didn't. I just watched her leave, the sound of the door closing echoing through the house. The living room became my solace. I'd sit there for hours, TV blaring, not really watching. I thought about going out, finding someone, anyone. But the couch, with its worn cushions, held me in place. One night Sarah came home late. She was humming, her eyes bright. She didn't see me sitting in the dark. I watched her float to the bedroom, her laughter a distant melody. I turned off the TV and sat there, in the silence, in the dark. The weekends were the hardest. Sarah would be out, living this new chapter of her life. I'd wander around the house, lost in my thoughts. I tried to remember what we used to do on weekends. All I found were fading memories, like photographs bleached by the sun. I remember standing in our backyard one evening. The sky was clear, the stars just pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. I wondered if Sarah was looking at the same sky, if she was thinking about me. I doubted it. Our bedroom felt foreign, like a hotel room you know you won't stay in for long. I'd lie awake, listening to the sound of my own breathing, the occasional car passing by outside. I missed her, missed us. I tried to keep busy, to fill my days with something, anything. I took up jogging, the rhythm of my footsteps, a temporary escape. The streets, the houses, the trees, they all looked the same, yet different. I was different. The house was quiet when I got back from my runs. I'd shower, make breakfast, and sit at the kitchen table. The chair opposite me remained empty. It used to be her chair, where she'd sip her coffee and talk about her day. Now it just held silence. One evening I came home to find Sarah in the living room. She was scrolling through her phone, lost in whatever world existed behind that screen. I wanted to reach out to bridge the gap between us. But instead I just walked past, a ghost in my own home. The realization hit me one night. I was sitting in the living room, the TV a blur of colors and sounds. I didn't want this. This wasn't what I signed up for. I wanted my wife, my life back. But as I looked around the empty room, I wondered if it was too late. The days blurred together, a mix of work, silence, and longing. I found myself going through the motions, a puppet on strings of routine. The house, once a symbol of our love, now felt like a prison. I remember one night, Sarah came home, her eyes shining, her cheeks flushed. She looked happy, alive. I watched her from the doorway, a silent observer in my own life. She didn't notice me, too caught up in her happiness. I tried to remember the last time we laughed together, the last time we held each other. The memories seemed like scenes from a movie, a life that once was but no longer existed. The coffee tasted bitter one morning. I sat at the kitchen table, the morning light casting shadows across the room. I looked at Sarah's empty chair and realized I was losing her, losing us. I thought about saying something, about fighting for us. But as I stood in our silent kitchen, I realized I didn't know how. I felt like a stranger in my own life, a bystander watching a play unfold. I went to bed that night, the sound of Sarah's laughter from her phone echoing through the house. I closed my eyes, trying to remember what it felt like to be happy, to be in love, but all I found was emptiness, a void where my heart used to be. As I drifted off to sleep, the realization sank in. This open marriage, this adventure we thought we wanted, was tearing us apart. I wondered if we could ever find our way back to each other, or if this was just the beginning of the end. Who knew a simple yes could flip your world upside down? I mused, staring at the empty coffee mug. It was just another morning, but nothing felt normal since we opened our marriage. Sarah, she found this guy Tom, gym instructor or something. They clicked right away. I overheard her laughing on the phone one evening, something about an inside joke they shared. Can't remember the last time we shared a joke. I got this date set up finally. Melissa met her online. We agreed to meet at this cozy cafe downtown. I got there early, found a spot in the corner. The place was buzzing with life, couples chatting, friends laughing. Felt like I was the only solo act in a duet show. Melissa walked in, looked around, and our eyes met. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We ordered coffee, made small talk. She talked about her cat, I think, or was it a dog? My mind kept drifting, wondering what Sarah was doing at that very moment. The conversation with Melissa, it was like trying to start a car with a dead battery. I asked about her job, she asked about mine. We both pretended to be interested. I caught myself glancing at the door, half expecting Sarah to walk in. Date ended with a nice meeting you and a half-hearted handshake. I watched Melissa walk away, her steps steady and sure. I stayed there, staring at my now cold coffee, wondering what the hell I was doing. That night, Sarah came home, eyes sparkling, full of life. She talked about her day with Tom. I tried to listen, but the words just bounced around in my head. I nodded, smiled, the usual husband stuff. The argument happened on a Thursday. I came home late. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe it was the humming, Maybe it was the day's frustration. I blurted out something about how easy she had it. Finding someone, being happy. She turned, surprised. It's not a competition, you know. Her words were calm, but her eyes weren't. The kitchen, once a place of warmth, felt cold, distant. I said something about fairness, about how lopsided this whole thing felt. She argued that we agreed to this, that it was supposed to be fun, exciting. Fun? I couldn't remember the last time I had fun. The argument spiraled, words thrown like darts, each hitting its mark. We talked about Tom, about Melissa, about us. Or maybe we didn't talk about us, not really. The argument ended with silence, the kind that screams. I lay in bed that night, Sarah beside me, a chasm between us. The clock ticked, each second a reminder of the mess we were in. I closed my eyes, but sleep was a stranger. Days passed, the tension hung in the air like a bad smell. Sarah tried to reassure me, said things like, "It's just a phase," or "We'll figure it out." She kept seeing Tom. I kept swiping left and right, a robot in a digital world. One evening, I came home to find Sarah in the living room, her phone in hand. She looked up, smiled. "Tom's great, you know. He makes me laugh." I nodded, said something about being happy for her. But inside, it felt like someone was slowly twisting a knife. I tried another date, some woman named Rachel. We met at a bar, the kind with dim lighting and loud music. She was nice, laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. But her laughter sounded hollow, or maybe that was just me. Came home that night to find Sarah asleep. The moonlight spilled across her face, peaceful, serene. I watched her for a moment, remembered the times when it was just us, no Toms or Rachels, just us. The next day, Sarah and I tried to have a normal conversation, talked about groceries, the weather, the new neighbor. But our words felt empty, like actors reading a script. We were losing something. Maybe we already lost it. I sat in the backyard one evening. The air was cool, the sky a canvas of stars. Sarah joined me, wrapped in her favorite sweater. We sat there side by side, not talking. The silence wasn't awkward, just heavy, filled with unspoken words. The next day, Sarah went out with Tom again. I busied myself with chores, tried to stay occupied. But every sound, every creak of the house reminded me of her absence. I ended up sitting on the porch, watching cars pass by, each one taking me further away from where we started. I tried to remember the last time we did something together, just the two of us. It felt like a distant memory, a scene from another life. Our life before this madness, before we thought stepping outside our marriage would somehow bring us closer. Sarah came home late, her face flushed with excitement. She talked about her evening, about the new restaurant they tried. I listened, or at least pretended to. Inside, something was crumbling, piece by piece. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. Sarah was there, but not really. She was with Tom, even when she was sitting right across from me. I became a background character in the story of her life. One night, I decided to go for a walk, clear my head. The streets were quiet, the night air crisp. I walked without direction, without purpose. Ended up at a park we used to go to back when things were simpler, happier. I sat on a bench, watched a couple walking hand in hand. They looked happy, content. I wondered if Sarah and I ever looked like that, if we could ever look like that again. Came back home to find Sarah in the kitchen making tea. She looked up, surprised to see me. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. I just shrugged, took a seat at the table. We sat there in the dim kitchen light, two strangers tied together by a ring and a promise. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into a blur. Sarah and I, we were like two ships passing in the night. She with her happiness, me with my doubts. The gap between us grew wider, deeper. I thought about ending it, this open marriage experiment. But every time I tried to bring it up, The words got stuck in my throat. I was scared, scared of what her answer might be. One evening I sat on the couch, TV playing some sitcom we used to watch together. Sarah walked in, paused. "We need to talk," she said. My heart sank, the moment of truth or the end of it. We sat there, the TV forgotten, the laughter from the show a distant echo. Sarah talked about Tom, about how he made her feel. I listened, each word a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But then she said something unexpected. "I miss us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked up, surprised. "I miss us too," I replied, the truth of my words surprising even me. We talked, really talked, for the first time in months. About our fears, our doubts, our mistakes. It wasn't easy, words like jagged edges, but it was necessary. The conversation ended with a decision, a tentative step towards finding our way back to each other. The open marriage was closed, the experiment over. We were back to just us, flawed, scared, but together. That night, we went to bed, the divide between us a little smaller. I closed my eyes, listened to Sarah's breathing, slow and steady. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a start. Chance to rebuild what we had almost lost. In the days that followed, the house began to feel like home again. We started doing things together, small things like cooking dinner or watching a movie. It was awkward at first, like learning to dance with someone all over again. Sarah ended things with Tom. She said it wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do. I didn't ask for details, didn't need them. All I needed to know was that she chose us, chose me. We had our first date night in ages. Dressed up, went to that Italian place we loved. We talked, laughed, and for a few hours, it felt like old times. But there was a new depth to our conversation, a new understanding. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of doubt, flashes of insecurity. But we worked through them together. We learned to communicate, really communicate. It was like discovering a secret language we never knew we had. Sometimes I'd catch Sarah looking at me, a hint of sadness in her eyes. I knew she was thinking about what we had almost lost. I felt it too, a lingering shadow of what if. But it also reminded us of what we had, what we were fighting for. We started planning a small trip, just a weekend getaway. Nothing fancy, just a chance to reconnect, to be away from the world. The excitement in Sarah's eyes when we talked about it, it was something I hadn't seen in a long time. The night before our trip, we sat in the backyard, just like that night when everything seemed to fall apart. But this time, it was different. We talked about the future, about our hopes and dreams. It felt like a new beginning, a second chance. As we packed our bags, I found a photo of us from years ago. We were younger, carefree. I showed it to Sarah, and we both smiled. "We've come a long way," she said. I nodded. "Yes, we have." On the drive to our destination, I took her hand, squeezed it gently. She squeezed back, a silent promise. We didn't need words, not then. The road stretched out before us, full of possibilities. We spent the weekend exploring, laughing, and loving. It was like rediscovering each other, peeling back layers we never knew existed. The world, with its chaos and noise, faded away. It was just us, and that was enough. As we drove back home, the sun setting in the horizon, I realized something. This journey, with all its twists and turns, had brought us closer. We were stronger, not despite our challenges, but because of them. We got home, tired but happy. The house welcomed us back, our sanctuary, our haven. We unpacked, settled in, and I made us some tea. We sat in the kitchen, the same place where it all almost fell apart. Sarah looked at me, a soft smile on her lips. "I love you," she said, simple and true. I held her gaze, felt the weight and warmth of those words. "I love you too," I replied, and in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. We had ventured into uncharted waters, got lost, but found our way back. Our love, tested and tried, emerged stronger. This chapter of our lives, this crazy, twisted adventure, it was over. But our story, our journey together, it was just beginning. And as we sat there, in the quiet of our kitchen, I realized that the greatest adventures aren't out there in the wild unknown. They're right here, in the heart of home, in the arms of the one you love. We lingered in the kitchen, the tea forgotten, lost in the comfort of our shared silence. It was a peaceful moment, the kind that heals old wounds, the kind you wish could last forever. In the following weeks, we made more efforts, simple things like leaving notes for each other, small reminders of our love. It was like rekindling a flame that we feared had gone out. Sarah started to open up about her time with Tom. Not the details, but the emotions, the confusion. I listened, not with jealousy, but with an attempt to understand. It wasn't easy hearing about her with someone else, but it was part of healing, part of moving forward. We started a new tradition, Friday movie nights. We take turns picking a film, sometimes ending up with a cheesy rom-com, other times with an action-packed thriller. It didn't really matter what we watched. It was about being together. One evening, as we were watching a movie, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. It was her way of saying she was still here. We were still here. We talked about going to therapy to help us navigate through the aftermath of our open marriage experiment. The first session was awkward, sitting in front of a stranger, talking about our most intimate issues. But as time went on, it became easier, almost therapeutic. The therapist helped us understand each other's perspectives, to communicate better. We learned about each other's fears and insecurities. It was like peeling back layers, exposing the raw, vulnerable parts of ourselves. We celebrated our anniversary, a milestone I wasn't sure we'd reach a few months back. We went back to the place where we first met, a little diner downtown. We talked about the past, about how young and naive we were. But there was also a sense of pride in how far we had come, in how much we had grown. Sometimes I'd catch Sarah looking at our wedding photos. She'd touch them gently, a soft smile on her face. I knew she was reminiscing, not just about the good times, but also about the struggles, about how they shaped us. We started planning for the future, talking about things we had put off. A vacation abroad, maybe starting a family. It felt good to dream together again, to look forward to something. One night, as we lay in bed, Sarah turned to me. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, referring to the open marriage. I thought about it, about all the pain and heartache it caused. But then I looked at her, at the love in her eyes, and I knew my answer. "No," I said. It was a journey we needed to take. It wasn't easy, but it brought us here, to this moment. She nodded, understanding. We had been through a storm, but we survived together. As time went on, the wounds healed, the scars faded. We weren't the same people who naively ventured into an open marriage. We were stronger, wiser, more in love. We took that vacation abroad, a trip to Italy. We walked the streets of Rome hand in hand, like two teenagers in love. We laughed, we kissed, we made memories, the kind that last a lifetime. Standing there, in the heart of an ancient city, I realized something. Life is unpredictable, full of twists and turns. But it's also beautiful, especially when you have someone to share it with. We returned home, our bonds stronger than ever. The house, our house, felt like a fortress, a testament to our love, to our journey. We had turned a new page, started a new chapter. And as we sat on our porch one evening, watching the sunset, I knew that no matter what life threw at us, we would face it together. We had weathered the storm, navigated through choppy waters, and now we were sailing into calmer seas. Our love, tested by fire, had emerged stronger, more resilient. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. We went back to some of our old routines, but they felt new, infused with a deeper appreciation for each other. We threw a small party, inviting close friends and family. It was a celebration of our journey. I looked around at the smiling faces, the laughter filling our home, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had almost lost this, but here we were, stronger than ever. Sarah and I started a new project together, remodeling the kitchen. It was something we had talked about for years, but never got around to doing. Working side by side, making decisions, laughing over paint swatches. It brought us even closer. One afternoon, while taking a break from painting, Sarah said something that stuck with me. You know, this kitchen is a lot like our marriage. It needed some work, some new colors, but the foundation was always strong. She was right. Our foundation was unshakable. We finished the kitchen, and it looked great. But more importantly, it was a symbol of our renewed commitment. Our joint effort to build something beautiful. As the seasons changed, so did we. But our love remained constant, a beacon guiding us through life's uncertainties. We learned to cherish each other more, to not take moments for granted. We celebrated another anniversary. This time, we decided to stay and cook dinner together. It was simple, but it was us. We talked about the future, about growing old together. It was a future I once feared we wouldn't have. I surprised Sarah one day with tickets to a concert of a band we both loved. The look of joy on her face was priceless. That night, surrounded by music and the energy of the crowd, we felt young and alive, our hearts beating in unison. We started a new tradition, Sunday walks in the park. It was our time to disconnect from the world and connect with each other. We talk about everything and nothing, basking in the comfort of our love. Sarah suggested we renew our vows. At first, I was hesitant, but then I realized it was a perfect idea. It would be a reaffirmation of our commitment, a celebration of our journey. We planned a small ceremony, just us and a few close friends. Standing there, repeating those sacred vows, I was overwhelmed with emotion. It was a moment of redemption, of renewed hope. Life continued with its ups and downs. But we faced everything together, a united front. Our love was no longer just a feeling. It was an action, a daily choice. One evening, as we sat watching the stars, Sarah leaned against me. Do you think we'll be okay? She asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. I wrapped my arm around her, pulled her close. Yes, I replied, looking up at the endless sky. As long as we have each other, we'll be more than okay. We'll be extraordinary. And in that moment, under the vast starlit sky, I knew that our love story wasn't just about surviving an open marriage. It was about growing, learning, and emerging stronger. It was about finding our way back to each other against all odds. We had embarked on a journey that tested us in ways we never imagined. But we came out on the other side, not just as survivors, but as victors, champions of our own love story. As the night wrapped around us, I realized that this, right here, was everything. The laughter, the tears, the struggles, they were all part of our beautiful, imperfect journey. And as we sat there, hand in hand, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, with love as our guiding light. We had traveled through the darkest of nights, and now, basking in the glow of our rekindled love, the future seemed bright, filled with endless possibilities. In the quiet of that night, with Sarah by my side, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been rough, the road twisted and uncertain, but it had led us here, to this moment of serene clarity. We began to plan for the things we had only dared to dream of before. A family, a home filled with laughter and love, journeys to distant lands together. Our dreams, once put on hold, were now within reach, waiting for us to grasp them. The days that followed were filled with an air of excitement, of anticipation for the life we were building. We started small, planting a garden in our backyard, watching as life sprang forth from the earth. A metaphor for our renewed relationship. As the garden flourished, so did we. Our love, once wilting, was now blooming, vibrant, and full of color. We tended to it with care, knowing that, like the plants in our garden, it needed attention, nurturing, and patience to grow. Sarah and I began hosting dinners again, inviting friends and family into our home. Our house, once a symbol of our isolation, was now a place of warmth and joy. The laughter and conversations that filled our rooms were like music to my ears, a sweet melody of happiness and contentment. We took up new hobbies together, exploring interests we had never considered before. Painting, hiking, cooking, each activity a new adventure, a new opportunity to learn and grow together. Our conversations deepened, becoming more open and honest. We shared our fears, our hopes, our dreams. We talked about the past, not with regret, but with gratitude for the lessons it had taught us. The renewal of our vows was not just a ceremony, but a celebration of our resilience, of our undying love. Standing there, hand in hand, we looked into each other's eyes, seeing not just the person we fell in love with, but the person we had grown to love even more. Our life together was no longer defined by the challenges we faced, but by the strength we found in overcoming them. We had emerged from the storm, not battered and bruised, but stronger and more united. And so, as we sat on our porch that night, watching the stars twinkle in the vast sky, I realized that this was our happy ending, or rather our happy beginning. A beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. In Sarah's embrace, I found not just a partner, but a soulmate, a companion for life's journey. We had danced with uncertainty, flirted with disaster, but in the end, we found our way back to each other. Our love story was not a fairy tale, but it was real, raw, and beautiful in its imperfection. It was a testament to the power of love, of forgiveness, of second chances. As the night gave way to the dawn, I looked at Sarah, sleeping peacefully beside me, and felt a surge of love and gratitude. She was my anchor, my guiding star, my everything. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would navigate it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. For we were not just husband and wife, we were partners in life, adventurers on an eternal journey of love. With the dawn's early light casting a soft glow over us, I whispered a promise into the morning air. A promise of forever, of always, of endless love and unwavering commitment. And as the sun rose, ushering in a new day, I knew that our love, once tested by the flames, was now unbreakable, a diamond forged in the heat of our struggles. We were ready to face.
Ah, there's that photo again. Me and Jay, practically teenagers, on some crazy beach trip. Our smiles blinding, the sand between our toes, the ocean. It all feels a million miles away now. Honestly, if it wasn't for my phone constantly shoving these memories in my face, I'd probably forget what it feels like to be that carefree. See, instead of sand, it's mostly dirty laundry and crumpled invoices around here. And instead of Jay's laugh, it's the hum of the radiators struggling against the winter chill. It's not bad, I guess. But is this it? Is this what I worked my butt off for? To build a comfortable life, that's basically one giant sigh? My phone buzzes. A notification from the shop's Instagram. Well, at least that's something. That stupid online store was supposed to be the spice, the thing that would keep me on my toes. Rain said it was a bad idea. A man selling clothes online, blah blah, but he's not exactly Mr. Excitement, is he? Wait a minute. A new order, and a pretty hefty one at that. The name doesn't look familiar. Axel, huh? Okay, Mr. Axel, let's see what you're into. Boxers, polos, couple of suits. Huh, not bad. He's definitely got money to burn on fancy clothes. I wonder what the guy even looks like. Ping. My stupid trader heart does a little flip. It's a message from Axel, and of course, it's got nothing to do with shipping times. Love the new additions to the store. You have great taste. Okay, that's flattering. And weird, since we haven't connected beyond me sending order confirmations. Maybe I should just ignore it, play it cool, but what's the harm? It's been ages since someone showed the slightest interest in, well, anything about me. And Rain with his work, don't even get me started. He barely knows I'm alive most days. The designs really stand out. I type back, adding a little smiley face, trying to keep it light. His reply is instant. He's definitely into this little chat. I feel a warmth spread through me. Just harmless flirting, right? But the flirting keeps going. He asks questions, not about fabric or inventory, but about me. My favorite color, how I spend my free time. That kind of stuff. There's this little voice in the back of my head, the annoyingly responsible one, that's starting to yell, red flag, boundaries, all that jazz. Yet, the stupid smile on my face won't budge. It's a distraction, that's all. A sprinkle of pepper on my boring, predictable, perfectly adequate little life. Meet up to finalize your order. It's easier in person. Axel's message blinks on the screen, and my stomach does a full-on flip-flop. This is it, the moment where I either slam the brakes on this runaway train of bad decisions, or, well, I don't know what the, or, even is, but it feels dangerous, thrilling, and a lot like I've already lost control. Rain's away on one of his endless hospital rounds for the next 2 days. A perfect, horrible, guilt-soaked window of opportunity. I tell myself it's just clothes. Just business. I'll meet him in the middle of the day at the shop, help him pick out a few outfits, and be done with it. But even as the lie forms in my head, I know it's flimsy. Suddenly, I'm obsessively checking the store's Instagram account, swiping through pictures of suits and shirts like I'm picking my own poison. What will he look like? All business casual and serious, or will the playful side from the messages carry over? For some twisted reason, I desperately want it to be the second option. The guilt is a constant drumbeat now. What the hell am I doing? Rain trusts me, and I'm already crafting 1,000 sneaky ways to deceive him. But then there's the other feeling, the one I try to ignore. Excitement, anticipation, a sense that something is finally about to happen, to shift. Morning comes. As I put on my, I'm a responsible business owner, not a desperate housewife, outfit. A wave of nausea makes me pause. What if this is the stupidest thing I've ever done? But I push it down, force the shaky feeling away. No, this is a way to take control, to spice things up. No more staring out windows, no more feeling invisible. Today is different. The bell above the shop door tinkles, and there he is. Axel, definitely more handsome than I expected, tall, the kind of confident smile that makes you feel instantly noticed. He shakes my hand, his grip warm, and I try to focus on his request for a suit for some vague business event. Let's try this one, I say, my voice sounding too high in my own ears. He heads into the fitting room, and I force myself to busy myself with organizing a nearby rack, pretending I'm not counting the seconds. He reemerges, and damn, the suit fits him perfectly. But it's what happens next. The way he catches my eye in the mirror as he smooths down his tie. A sly smile playing on his lips. That's what undoes me. He knows exactly what he's doing. And worse, a traitorous part of me likes it. He changes back, lingers a fraction too long. Drinks sometime? He asks casually. The words hang in the air. That's the line. The one where I can still say no. But instead, the word, sure, escapes my lips, and the decision sears itself onto my soul. My hands shake as I turn the key in my own front door. It shouldn't feel like breaking and entering, but that's exactly what it is. I'm a thief in my own home, stealing moments, stealing a version of myself that Rain can never know. The guilt is a physical thing now, a cold knot in my gut. But pushing it down comes as easily as turning on a light, a dangerous, reckless switch flipped inside of me. I force a smile as Rain greets me, his eyes warm, the untouched dinner a silent accusation on the table. Sorry, babe, some stuff came up at the store. I lie effortlessly. He doesn't question it, doesn't push, just gives me that concerned look, the one that says he knows something's off, but has no clue how deep the cracks go. The one that makes me want to scream and confess all at once. Later, he reaches for me in the darkness, and I flinch away with a mumbled excuse about feeling tired. The space between us in that bed feels wider than an ocean. Each lie, each touch I refuse, chips away at whatever tiny bit of us is left. The only real connection I feel now is the shameful buzz when my phone lights up with a message from Axel. It's not remorse, it's a craving, an addiction to the way he makes me feel desired, important, seen. Can't wait to see you again. He writes with that damn emoji, a wink that sets my cheeks on fire. In the lonely, sleepless hours, I try to reason with the monster inside. It's just a fling, I tell myself. A way to let loose, to shake things up. Then I'll go back to my perfect, boring life. Rain will never know, but a tiny voice whispers that I'm in free fall, that the price of this excitement might be more than I bargained for. Yet, the fall is intoxicating. The next day, I find myself driving to Axel's apartment, the address he so casually slipped into conversation. No more flimsy excuses about the store. This is different, darker. I feel both a fear of what I'm becoming and a twisted eagerness to see where the ride takes me. I tell Rain I have a late meeting. The lies taste bitter now, but come just as easily. Each one paints me into a corner further away from the woman I used to recognize. The woman I'm desperately trying to erase. My phone rings, and I flinch like it's a venomous snake. It's Axel, my insides flip, a sickening mix of anticipation and fear. He's moved past flirty texts. Now it's calls. Breathless whispers late at night, demands for just one more time. The excitement has curdled into something heavier, harder to control. I glance across the breakfast table. Rain looks tired, his attention on his medical journal. It cuts like a knife, the way I don't even care if he asks about my day anymore. All I can think about is the next stolen hour with Axel, the next hit of that dark, destructive high. But then a wave of something like shame crashes over me. What am I becoming? Am I only worth something when a man like Axel desires me? Rain, for all his focus on work, for all our lost connection, he loves me, doesn't he? Or is that just another lie I tell myself as I dial Axel back, my voice low and breathless? The changes in me are too obvious to hide now. Rain's not stupid. Every distracted smile, every late night excuse is a nail in the coffin of our marriage. He asks where I've been, his tone shifting from concern to suspicious. Our arguments are no longer about forgotten chores or neglected date nights. They're heavy silences, him staring at me like I'm a stranger, the unspoken accusation hanging between us. Are you seeing someone else? He asked last night, and I almost broke. The truth clawed at my throat, but I forced it down with another lie. His eyes, once filled with warmth, now hold a flicker of something like disgust. Even Rachel is giving me side eyes at the shop. She was so excited about our little business, and now it's nothing but a playground for my self-destruction. She hasn't said anything outright, but her pursed lips and worried glances speak louder than words. She knows something's wrong, just not the toxic, shameful extent of it. Tonight, something snaps, a reckless, defiant little voice that sounds nothing like me whispers, "Screw it." I tell Rain I'm working late. Instead, I put on a dress I haven't worn in years, the one that makes me feel bold and sinful in equal measure, and I drive back to Axel's. Hours later, I slink home as dawn breaks, guilt and disgust twisting my stomach. I catch my reflection in the mirror and almost scream. Smudged makeup, haunted eyes, the ghost of the woman I used to be. I fall into bed beside Rain, my skin crawling, his scent, the one I used to find so comforting, now a suffocating reminder of my betrayal. As sleep finally drags me under, I realize the truth. I'm not just losing my marriage. I'm losing myself. There's a tightness in my chest that won't go away, like a fist clenching my heart. It started a few days ago, that feeling of being watched. At first, I dismissed it as paranoia. The guilt would do that to a person, right? But now, I'm not so sure. Rain's acting strange, distant, but in a new way. Less sadness, more calculation. Like he's playing a game, and I'm the only one not in on the rules. It's terrifying, a spotlight on all the ways I've become a stranger to my own husband. I'm slipping up. Yesterday, I left Axel's jacket in my car. A stupid, rookie mistake. I managed to hide it before Rain noticed, but the fear lingers. Every time he looks at me, I imagine him finding the jacket, smelling the unfamiliar cologne, the truth hanging in the air like poison. Then, the receipt. It flutters to the floor as I pull out my wallet, a tiny scrap of paper that feels like a death sentence. It's from a men's boutique. I've never heard it, an expensive one. For a moment, I freeze, but I can't risk Rain finding it. As he walks past, I scoop it up, my hand shaking. But I just know the clock is ticking. Rain's usually gone by the afternoon, long hours at the hospital. But today, he announces he's working from home. My stomach plummets. The lie I have ready about running errands disintegrates on my tongue. Every sound of his laptop clicking away fuels my panic. And then he does the unthinkable. Around lunchtime, he says he's stepping out to grab coffee. But as I watch from the living room window, he walks right past the coffee shop. My pulse thunders in my ears. He's following me. I need to warn Axel, but my phone feels like a ticking bomb. One look at my messages might condemn us both. So I do the only thing I can. I drive. I circle the city aimlessly, trying to think, trying to disappear, all the while knowing that whatever fragile piece existed in my life is about to be obliterated. The rest of the afternoon unravels in a sickening blur. He sees me. There's no mistaking it. His car parked 2 blocks from Axel's apartment, the raw pain on his face as I step out. The perfect, safe world I constructed in my head collapses. That night, there's no avoiding it. The confrontation crackles with a kind of energy I've never felt before, fury, anguish, the desperate need to rewind time and make different choices. Who is he? Rain spits out, his voice barely recognizable. The lies catch in my throat. Pathetic, pointless lies. For one desperate moment, I consider throwing myself at his feet, begging for forgiveness I don't deserve. But a stronger, more self-destructive impulse takes hold. If I'm going down, I'm going to down fighting. It's none of your business, I say, the coldness in my voice shocking me almost as much as it does him. And that's when the world truly shifts on its axis. My words smash into the room like a grenade. I cheated. With someone else. They hang there, a toxic cloud poisoning the air. Rain's face contorts, a mask of disbelief. It's a relief in a way, this horrible, brutal honesty. But it's matched by a crushing wave of shame that threatens to drown me. How could you? It's barely a whisper, rasping and raw. My tears flow freely now. I spill out justifications, none of them adequate. How boring I felt, how neglected, how Rain didn't see me anymore. But they ring hollow, even to my own ears. Rain erupts. He's never been one for yelling, but his fury now cuts deeper than any scream. His words lash like whips. Selfish, pathetic, a destroyer of everything good in his life. Each accusation is a fresh wound on my already battered soul. Something snaps. A counterattack surges up, fueled by a mix of pain and defiance. It's ugly, a vicious game of laying blame. I fling his focus on work back in his face, his lack of romance, the hollow echo of the house where children were supposed to laugh. Hours pass, a hurricane of anger, accusations, and tears. The air crackles with the energy of a dying star, and by the end, there's nothing left. Not love, not respect, just a gaping, desolate wasteland where our marriage used to be. His voice, when it finally comes, is chillingly calm. Get out, it's not a request, it's an execution order. I move like an automaton. Packing becomes a pathetic testament to the life I've built here. The comfy sweaters I never wore for Axel, the recipe books collecting dust, the photo albums I can no longer bear to look at. Each item stabs me as I toss them in the suitcase. I leave some behind, a pathetic attempt to offer some kind of penance. Rachel's voice on the phone is my lifeline. When I crack and tell her everything, there's a shocked silence. Then, bless her, the offer of her spare room. I hear the pity mixed with horror, but I can't find it in myself to care. Leaving the house feels like a death march. Each step down the front path is away from the only life I've known as an adult. Rain doesn't even look up as I close the door, his silence the final nail in the coffin of what once was. I collapse into the passenger seat of Rachel's car. The numbness is already wearing off, replaced by a bone-deep chill no amount of blankets can ever cure. How did I let things get so bad? I choke out, but there's no real answer, just the sickening realization that I've ruined everything. Rachel's spare room is tiny, suffocating. It smells of lavender candles, a desperate attempt to mask the heavy air of my failure. Every inch of space screams, "You don't belong here." I am a burden, a charity case, a living reminder to my best friend of the terrible choices people make. I try calling Axel, once, twice, a dozen times. My calls go straight to voicemail, his inbox full. It hits me like a freight train. I meant nothing to him. I was a fling, a diversion, a box to tick off on his pathetic list of conquests. Tears sting my eyes, but they're not for him. They're for the pathetic fool I've become. Time warps, days blur into a haze of sleepless nights and forced mouthfuls of food that Rachel insists I eat. All those fantasies of Axel as some soul-saving escape route evaporate, leaving a bitter taste more painful than hunger. Worse than the physical discomfort is the relentless voice in my head. It whispers, shouts, berates, worthless, selfish, liar. It's a broken record of my own making, and I have no idea how to make it stop. News of my situation spreads like wildfire. A twisted, exaggerated version of events paints me as the villain. People I considered friends now cross the street to avoid me. Their pitying glances are worse than outright anger. My carefully constructed reputation, the image of the happily married businesswoman, lies in tatters. The divorce papers arrive by courier. An impersonal, clinical severing of the life Rain and I built. Should I feel a crushing sadness? Yet, all I feel is a dull ache and a strange relief. Signing those documents is akin to amputating a poison limb. Painful, but necessary for any hope of survival. Even Rachel is changing. Her smiles are forced, the light-hearted banter replaced by an awkward, heavy silence. She tries, bless her, but her home is now a cage. Each unspoken judgment hangs between us like a ghost. I throw myself into the only thing I have left, the store. It should be a distraction, but it's a cruel mirror. Customers eye me with suspicion. Some are openly hostile. My attempts at enthusiasm feel fake, plastic. Sales dwindle to almost nothing. The dream I clung to, the one I foolishly thought would save me, is dying. And as it does, it takes the last, pathetic fragments of my old self along with it. Now, when I stare into the mirror, it's a haunted stranger staring back. My throat burns from the cheap whiskey I forced down last night. It didn't stop the nightmares, just made them a bit blurrier. The ringing phone jolts me awake. It's my mom. Even in my misery, I brace myself. Her love is the tough variety, laced with a disappointment so deep it cuts to the bone. "Sweetheart," I heard. She says, her usual warmth replaced by something almost clinical. Brace for impact. My voice cracks as I spill everything. The affair, the implosion of the business, Rain. Each confession is another stone dragging me under. She listens, then comes the verdict I both fear and crave. Tama, you've made a colossal mess. This wasn't about boredom, it was about a lack of respect. For Rain, and most importantly for yourself. The words sting, but they're true. She offers financial help, not pity. I manage a pathetic thank you. The call ends, leaving me more alone than ever. Night brings no relief. Regret claws at my insides. Every cringe-worthy memory of Axel, every fight with Rain. I toss and turn, whispering apologies to an empty room. The question echoes in the darkness. Will I ever feel like a decent person again? Will anyone ever be able to look at me without seeing the word cheater stamped across my forehead? My phone buzzes again. It's Rain's lawyer, a final piece of paperwork for the divorce. Just seeing Rain's name sends a shock through me. Grief mixes with guilt, and a strange, desperate impulse surfaces. Before I can overthink, I dial his number. His voice, when he answers, is strained, distant. It reminds me of the chasm I've created between us. Can we talk? I ask, hating the weakness in my voice. There's a long pause. Fine, he finally says. The cafe on Willow Street. Tomorrow at noon. It's our old spot, where we fell in love over terrible coffee and dreams of a future. The weight of the symbolism almost crushes me. News arrives that same day about Axel. A coworker of Rachel's mentions his sudden move for a promotion overseas. A pang of something ripples through me. Disappointment? Relief? He was never a savior, just another escape hatch that led straight into a brick wall. The next morning, I dress with agonizing care. There's a flicker of the old Tama, the one who wanted to look presentable, but it's fueled by shame, not hope. The cafe is a ghost. Each table, each shipped cup, is a reminder of happier times. He arrives, face drawn, years older than when I last saw him. We make careful small talk, but the words hang heavy. Finally, I can't take it anymore. I'm so sorry, Rain. I blurt out. The rest spills out. My selfish reasons, the pathetic weakness, how I destroyed everything good between us. He listens. There's pain in his eyes, but the rage is gone. When he speaks, it's measured, almost rehearsed. I should have seen it, he says, and damn, does that hurt? We talk more. Mistakes on both sides, dreams that died slowly. Not reconciliation, but an autopsy of our marriage. It ends with something resembling understanding, even a flicker of compassion. A sliver of closure that feels like a lifeline in a wreckage I've created. I leave feeling lighter, but it's the heavy weight of consequences, not the flighty light of happiness. Walking away from the cafe, I feel something I haven't in ages, the faintest sliver of peace. It's laced with sorrow, but there's a calm too. Rain and I won't miraculously patch things up, but there's an acceptance of the brokenness, without the burning, white-hot fury. Is this what forgiveness feels like? Maybe just the first, fragile step. I need to walk, to process, to simply move, so I lose myself in the streets. And there it is, my story. My failed, foolish dream. Each item of clothing in the window mocks me. A constant reminder of ambition twisted into desperation, into reckless escape. A decision hits me with sudden force. It has to go. The "for sale" sign goes up like a white flag of surrender. Each interested buyer, their eyes filled with hope and plans I'll never see, is a fresh twist of the knife. But it's necessary, a purge, a severing of ties with the woman who made such catastrophic choices. The divorce hearing is a surreal blur. Lawyers, emotionless paperwork, and the final, irrevocable end to the life I knew. Tears threaten, but I hold them back. Tears won't fix anything now. Months slip by. The job at the grocery store is far from glamorous. Bagging apples and swiping barcodes is a long way from curating a fashion line. But the work is honest, the routine grounding. My once manicured nails are chipped and broken. Each bag I pack feels like another layer of my old life being shed. The pain isn't gone, but it's different now. A dull ache, rather than the unbearable sharpness. In its place, quiet determination starts to rise. I may have fallen hard, but I am not broken beyond repair. Enter Sarah, an old high school friend. We hadn't spoken in years, but a chance encounter at the supermarket leads to coffee. She listens with genuine care, none of Rachel's judgment. Her life, with its normalcy and steady contentment, is a stark contrast to my own chaos. Yet, it's a reminder that there are other ways to live, other paths I never explored. Finally, at my mother's insistence, I begin therapy. The woman in the calming armchair doesn't judge, but she challenges me, makes me confront the ugliness in my actions. We delve deep, past the affair, into the insecurities and long-simmering resentments that fueled my self-destruction. It's agonizing but liberating. One evening, As I'm making a pathetic excuse for dinner out of a wilted lettuce head. A knock sounds at the door. My heart thuds. It's Rachel. The apology spills out of her, clumsy but heartfelt. We talk into the night. It's not an instant fix, cracks still run deep between us. But in that hesitant hug after all these months, there's a flicker of hope that maybe friendship can survive even the worst of storms. My fingers move almost without thought, bagging potatoes, scanning carrots. The monotony should be soul-crushing, but it's oddly soothing. A reminder of simple realities. Each day that passes without a catastrophic mistake feels like a victory. Time, I'm learning, can be an unexpected friend in the wake of self-inflicted ruin. Dr. Miller, my therapist, suggests a journal. Not to relive, she urges, but to understand and release. I'm skeptical, but I find writing unlocks something. My shame, anger, and even flickers of hope flow onto the page. The physical act of putting my messy thoughts into words helps untangle them bit by bit. Then there's the easel, collecting dust in the garage. It's a relic of the old Tama, the one who dreamed of a life less ordinary. Taking up a paintbrush after years feels awkward, like greeting a half-forgotten friend. But as color seeps onto the canvas, something loosens inside. No longer striving for perfection, I splash out my emotions, the darkness, the frustration, the stubborn tendrils of hope that are starting to sprout. The animal shelter becomes my weekend sanctuary. Battered dogs with trusting eyes. Scrawny kittens demanding my clumsy affection. Their innocence is a balm to my damaged soul. Helping them, earning their tiny licks of approval. It feels like the first truly selfless act I've undertaken in ages. One afternoon, at a used bookstore browsing for something mindless, I run into a face. Not a familiar one, but a kind one. He offers a genuine smile, the kind I thought had vanished from the world after my fall. We chat awkwardly, about books, about the weather, about the strange comfort of old things. I leave with a lighter heart. Maybe, just maybe, genuine connection might still be possible. The news about Rain hits me out of nowhere. A colleague mentions his upcoming wedding, a new woman, someone great. A flare of hurt, a twist of the old knife, but stronger underneath it is an overwhelming sense of release. He's building his life elsewhere, without me. It hurts, but it should. Time to build my own. The painting is almost done. A swirling mass of colors, angry at first, softening into unexpected shades of light. It's ugly, beautiful, and brutally honest. Looking at it, an unfamiliar thought hits me. Pride. Not in the old sense, but a quiet acknowledgement of how far I've come through the wreckage. There's still so far to go, but for the first time in a very long while, I see the faintest outline of a path forward. Heard about your ex, Sarah says casually over our sad cafe's salads at lunch one day. The one who was, overseas? Turns out, overseas was right down the street. Wife, kid, the whole package. Ouch. The pang of something isn't as sharp as I'd feared. Regret, mostly, for the idiotic girl who thought a man like Axel was anything other than a walking disaster. But there's freedom too. My destruction of my own life wasn't tethered to him being some kind of soulmate. It was all mine. A strange new hunger stirs in me. I crave knowledge, not random facts, but the kind of knowledge that might help explain why I fell so damn hard. The next day, I find myself enrolling in a psychology night course, introduction level, but a start. The textbooks feel heavier than any designer bag ever did. The shelter becomes not just an escape, but a place of unexpected connection. Janice, a volunteer coordinator with a voice like sandpaper and a heart of gold, takes me under her wing. She's seen it all, and I sense in her a similar mix of exhaustion and stubborn, unrelenting hope. She doesn't offer pity, just challenges me to work a little harder, be a little gentler. In her rough way, she shows me a different kind of strength. Then, there's the invitation. My husband has one of those fancy art gallery openings. Rachel explains awkwardly over the phone. I thought, if you wanted, it's an olive branch of sorts. And a terrifying step back into my old world. I nearly flake, but some defiant part of me, the part that won't be a hermit forever, makes me dress up and stand in line for a tiny, overpriced glass of wine. The art, surprisingly, moves me. Not because it's world-class, but because I see it with new eyes. The yearning for beauty-eyed misdirected is still there, but tempered now by understanding its limits. The familiar face shocks me into dropping my wine glass. It's a customer, one of the kind ones who actually appreciated my efforts with the store. Her smile is warm. Tama, right? It's terrible about your shop, but I'm glad to see you're doing okay. A wave of shame nearly washes over me, but instead, I manage a genuine smile back. She doesn't whisper behind my back, doesn't see, ruined woman. It's a small victory, but it feels monumental. Late one night, with a textbook on motivation propped on my knees, an idea sparks. What if I write a blog, anonymous, raw, not seeking forgiveness, but offering something? Maybe my mess of mistakes could be a beacon for others, a testament to the devastation that follows when you pursue happiness in all the wrong places. My fingers hover over the keyboard. Post. The button taunts me. This is a different kind of exposure than I ever could have imagined. Hitting publish on my first raw, uncensored blog entry feels more terrifying than any illicit rendezvous with Axel. What if everyone I know finds it? What if my words do more harm than good? But then there's the other thought, the one I desperately cling to. What if they help even one person feel less hopelessly alone? I hit post, then shut my laptop, too wired to sleep. The response is slow at first, a trickle of comments here and there. Some are supportive, others dismissive, or even cruel. I brace for judgment, but find something more powerful, recognition. People, mostly women, share their experiences, betrayals, foolish choices fueled by the same emptiness I felt. My story becomes a starting point for conversations, an uncomfortable mirror reflecting the cracks that lie beneath the surface of many seemingly perfect lives. Then comes the message that rocks my world. It's from a man named David. His marriage, he confesses, nearly fell apart. I saw myself in your words, he writes. Your honesty made me see how damn close I came. My blog saved his marriage. It's both thrilling and terrifying all at once. I panic. Am I qualified to give advice, to shoulder this kind of responsibility? With Dr. Miller's encouragement, I seek guidance from a therapist who specializes in online communities and personal risk. She talks of boundaries, anonymity, the dangers of offering solutions instead of support, and I realize the line between helpful and harmful is thinner than I'd grasped. My own therapy shifts focus too. We examine my need for validation, the way I'd sought it out in destructive ways. We dig into friendships, family, the slow process of rebuilding relationships on foundations stronger than shared gossip and expensive lattes. Then, the envelope with familiar handwriting on it. My breath catches. It's been ages since I've heard directly from Rain. Inside is a short letter, carefully worded. No blame, just a recognition of shared pain, flawed decisions, and finally, the wish for some kind of peace. It's the ending I never thought possible, an anchor in the storm. An email appears in my inbox, an opportunity. A modest local gallery is looking for work by new artists. My paintings, the ones fueled by chaos and quiet redemption, have been gathering dust under the bed. It's time to share the most vulnerable one, the swirling mass of color, not for fame or to be judged, but as a testament to the messiness of being human. I add my name and email, then hit send. This isn't a fairy tale ending. My life is far from perfect. The blog is a responsibility I take seriously. The ache of loneliness remains. The scars don't disappear. But there's a resilience in me now that wasn't there before. A willingness to face the unknown, mistakes and all. Knowing there will be bad days, good days, and the strength